what's up, friends? Ray with Docket Tim Works. How y'all doing? If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back, and if you're new, welcome to the channel, and thanks for checking it out on my wood turning journey. So this channel is basically about wood turning, and I do show some other things like chainsaw work that support my passion for wood turning. So we've got a giant piece of cherry that I'm trying to save. It was left outside and was really weathered, split, and cracked. So I'm going for a large salad bowl. Stick around and let's see if we can pull it off and salvage this piece of wood and get something worth keeping out of it. Okay, so like I said earlier, this is a large piece of black cherry, and it is really checked and split. It was cut into a slab, basically a half log, where a quarter sawn board of about 2 inches on either side of the pith was removed, and then it was just left outside in the elements. I had some issues come up and I couldn't store my wood properly like I wanted to. When I came across this piece of wood, it was massive piece of cherry that I don't have anything like that left. At the time when I was breaking down wood, I was on a smaller 14-inch Rikon lathe, and this was a remnant that I had plans of getting a larger lathe in the future, so I had left a couple of slabs whole and hadn't broke them down into 14-inch or 12-inch size bowls. So I had high hopes for this, that the cracks were surface cracks and would turn away quickly, and well, no such luck. So I watch a lot of Richard Graffin. He's one of my biggest influences. Probably like any other turner, he's one of your biggest influences. Well, one of his favorite styles of videos of his that he does is him working on the bandsaw and working through split and cracked troubled wood, which is what I should have done with this piece. I probably could have broke this down into large size, still probably 2 10-inch diameter bowls and some box springs, but I was stubborn and I wanted a big bowl out of it. And so here you can see how deep those checks really are. Man, I could have made some really nice spindle blanks out of this. I could have made several smaller bowls out of this, but I wanted a large cherry bowl, and cherry's my favorite wood to work with. I love the smell of it. I love the way it cuts. I love the look of it. There's nothing bad about cherry. I love it. So I wanted to get a large bowl out of it. So at this point, I am doing kind of a terrace or a step with left-handed push cuts. This makes it so I don't have to sit there and eat a bunch of the shavings coming off, and it also keeps me back behind the bowl, whereas if I was doing draw cuts, I would be in direct line of fire of it. As you saw, those cracks are deep. This is almost verging into the point of not yet dangerous wood, but it's questionable wood. Okay, if any gnarly catch could happen, maybe where one of those deep splits are, a huge portion of that bowl could chunk off and fly. So I would much rather be like I am now, up at the headstock or back by the tailstock and out of the line of fire if anything was to separate or let go. So while I do admit, and I agree 100%, doing draw cuts or pull cuts with an Irish type or an Ellsworth type grind removes material a lot faster, these left-handed push cuts put me in a safer area. And these shavings hurt. This log had been down for probably a year and a half. You can see me kind of trying to deflect them out with the palm of my hand instead of letting them hit the top of my hand. They hurt pretty bad. Okay, I've removed a good amount of the bowl, and you'll see me retightening my chuck. That is because the nub is now too long, it's no longer stable, and I need to remove it. So it's always a good practice, if you're going to remove your tailstock, even if it's just for a short amount of time, retighten that chuck. Make sure that anything hasn't settled in or slopped off. And it's just being precautionary. It's being proactive rather than reactive. And now, you know, I feel a lot better to attack the nub, remove that nub, and in some cases I would reinstall the tailstock, or I would go like I am now and try and get a finishing push cut and clean up the surface and see what I'm looking at. Once you get down to the tenon width of the bowl, when you use push cuts, you can't really have the tailstock in place anymore. But you can definitely have it in place for deep removal of material, getting a bowl shape. And it's just a best practice, especially if you're not professional, if you haven't been doing it for 20 years or whatever. When you can, keep the tailstock in place. You know, it's just a best practice. I know a lot of people are sometimes curious about what type of gouge you're using. This one happens to be my very first bowl gouge that I bought, and it's what I learned to transition from carbides into using traditional tools. It is a Hurricane, bought off Amazon, 5/8 bowl gouge that I have sharpened towards a 40/40 platform grind like Stuart Batty does. So this is not the best gouge for it. It's probably hard to see in these videos, but it has more of a V flute rather than an elliptical or parabolic flute. It's not a U flute, but it is a V type flute. And it is a little bit difficult to sharpen in a push cut 40/40 type way, but it works and I get the job done with it.
Solid wood. A little bit in the tenon. A little bit. This one's going away. And we'll have to CA that. We got a little ring shake up on the top. We'll bring it down just a hair. I don't want to deal with ring shake. And we'll use up some of that wing that we haven't been using.
Okay, so ring shake is some pretty bad stuff. It's really unstable and can come apart at any time. So whenever you come across it in a bowl blank, you should either get rid of the bowl blank, cut it out, or carve it away or turn it away like I did. It's not something that you want to keep in your project. And now I hope you guys remember how big this bowl started and about what size it's going to end. But it's still a decent sized bowl. I don't remember the exact dimensions, but I would say that that first initial round that I put on was about 18 inches in diameter, right? And we're looking to be probably about 14, 15 now towards the finished diameter. I had to turn away a bunch of material, but that was me being stubborn. And once I started, I was not going to lose this piece and not have a product. I love cherry so much, or too much, to just toss it in the burn pit.
I'm not getting a sharp corner with that.
Okay, so more often than not, I do the bulk removal of the tenon with my 40/40 gouge, and then I clean things up with a 1/2-inch spindle gouge that has the heel removed quite a bit to get in tighter. And just, I probably reiterate this over and over again in my videos, but the tenon is probably the most important part of your turning process in a bowl. It is the foundation of reversing and hollowing. So, and of the final foot of your bowl. So much time and care should be put into nailing and dialing in your tenon. It should not be haphazardly or carelessly formed. A lot of guys like Raffin and Stewart or Tomislav, they're on automatic mode, and they can just knock them out in seconds flat. It takes me a little bit longer, and maybe I'm a little more apprehensive about doing it wrong, but I have lost a couple of bowls, you know, coming out of chucks because of bad tenon design when I first started turning. And I've been flirting around recently with Tommy and Richard's style of production turning, where they leave the tenon on as a foot, like I'm doing here. So I'm making sure that the tenon is concave, because it's such a large tenon, why not just leave it on as a foot? I've had more problems reversing a bowl and trying to remove the tenon than any other process of bowl turning. So I'm not saying that I can't do it, but I've been lazy lately. And to be honest, you know, just to be fair and to be honest, when I had my Rikon set up, I had a bunch of jam chucks that I used. I haven't set those up for this lathe yet. And so I do have a vacuum chuck. I've had some hiccups with it if you've seen some of my other videos. And so I did a run of maybe 5 or 6 bowls where I either left them as like a shallow wide bowl with a recessed mortise that I left in, or a decorative tenon that I left on. And now see, the great thing about leaving a decorative tenon on is, after it's said and done and you don't like it, you can always come back and remove it. But I'll just, you know, a little premonition here. This bowl didn't last 2 hours on my craft show table and was sold for $100. So that's, you know, wood turners are extremely critical of technique and the finished product. If you were going to gift a fellow wood turner a bowl, they would be apprehensive of you leaving a tenon on it. The average person that just wants a beautiful wooden bowl, not so much. And right here is a first for me. I usually just do a regular bowl, and as I was removing a bunch of material, I decided to leave some up at the rim and try a beaded rim on this bowl. And it's just these things that come out on the fly. You know, I didn't have the plan for this as I was going, but the thought come across my mind. I'm removing so much material, I'm going to leave a little bit up at the top and put a rim at the top. And then, since this is a large and most likely going to be somewhat heavy bowl, maybe that rim will give a better
nothing
purchase.
Cuts better off the tool than cherry. So I've got a split here and a split here. So I'm going to use Black CA, and the good thing about Black CA and cherry is it kind of just blends in with the pitch pockets. But I don't want it to bleed and stain the rest of the wood. So I'm going to hit it with some shellac to seal it up, and hopefully that will keep the Black CA from staining. Pretty sure I mixed this stuff too thin. At least it'll dry fast.
Okay, and even with this coat of shellac, the Black CA did stain the surrounding wood of this cherry. Now, I've had good success with oak, where it doesn't stain it, and I believe ash also, where it doesn't surround the surrounding wood, which is interesting because those are considered more open pore wood, whereas cherry is tight grained. But I also remember sycamore staining the outer edges. I might switch over to using coffee grounds or sawdust of whatever rather than the Black CA on these lighter woods. It seems to do well on oak, like I said, hickory, and ash, but cherry, maple, and sycamore, it seems to blend or bleach out, and it doesn't give you a fine, defined line. It's a blurry line. So here's the application of the Black CA. And you can really see how brutal this split was. And, you know, I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to be able to turn this away. Let's just deal with it.
It's just Starbond Black CA and their accelerant.
One important thing when using CA, after the initial coat, it kind of, through capillary, goes down into the wood, and you have to do 2 to 3 coats sometimes as it draws deeper down inside to the wood. You have to fill that up, or you waste a bunch of time sanding and having to redo it anyways. I'm really not a fan of fixing bowls this way. I always get flat spots where I sand too much and trying to remove the Black CA from the edge, and I get flat spots on the bowl, and no matter how hard I try to feather it out and fix the problem, it never, you can feel the lumps when you're sanding under power and rotation. It's not a technique I enjoy doing, and I try to avoid it whenever possible. Richard's actions and words and opinions they have to be built up from decades of experience, because I watch him all the time, and he hates dealing with splits and would not rather fix them. I've seen him fix very, very few amounts of bowls. He would rather not turn them, and I understand this. Because it's, even the repair job, it's still a split, it's still a weak point, and like I said, I usually end up having a flat spot, and it's not perfect. So right here, I'm pretty proud of the Tenon, how it came out, and how much of close it is to a perfect circle. We'll see. Here you can see how much material I took off the top. That's a good 1.5 inches, or maybe 2 inches off the top, because of defects that were in the top. I really had to whittle away this bowl. You can see down on the floor how much of this bowl is sitting on the ground, and we haven't even gotten to hollowing yet. Okay, and as you can see, I am using peeling cuts into side grain. And I get this from Stuart Batty. He has a wealth of information in his 7 fundamentals of wood turning. And it's about efficiency and proper way of cutting into wood. If I was to do a push grain across the whole top of or a push cut across the whole top of the bowl, I would be fighting into 80% of end grain the whole time, as opposed to this technique where I'm peeling side grain. It's a much more efficient use of your gouge and removing material. So if you get the chance, check out Stuart Batty's 7 fundamentals of wood turning. I believe they're critical for understanding the fundamentals and the basics of wood turning. Not just going through the motions of wood turning, but actually understanding what it is that you're doing. So right here is contemplation on how I want to deal with this bead. I'm trying to figure it out. Like I said, I've never really done a project like this before. So I have to go work this rim a little bit and figure out how I want this bead to look and come out as a finished project before I remove too much material off the top or the inside of the bowl. Okay, so I am self-taught. I've never been taught by a wood turner. I've never really experienced more than 15 minutes spending time with anybody other than myself wood turning. So I use a bunch of techniques from various turners that I watch on YouTube. This is back to raffing with using a spindle gouge as a depth gauge to find the bottom of the hole and establish where I want the bottom to be. Okay, a couple things to note right here. I jump out of the screen back away from or towards the camera. This is because I keep my controls back towards the tailstock. This is a conscious effort to keep me in a safer position. That way, in a fast situation, I'm moving away from danger, not towards it. If you have to reach across the workpiece and hit your emergency stop at the headstock, you're putting yourself in the line of fire. You're putting yourself at a risk of being hit. 2, if you saw that, that was a small little catch, barely anything. I wasn't hogging material. It's still kind of interesting how it happened, but it didn't take much to knock that bowl loose. As you can see, the tenon was fine. I think I had the chuck loose. I was worried about putting indents into the tenon because I wanted to keep the tenon, not turn it away. And I think I was turning with the chuck not tight enough, because moving forward, I cranked down on it and I have no problems hollowing this bowl. Okay, I had to switch gouges for the hollowing. That 5/8 hurricane gouge is, like I said, it was my first bowl gouge I ever bought, and I probably reground it 20 different times, playing with different grinds before I settled on just keeping it at a 40/40. So its flute is really short, and it works perfectly fine for turning the outside of bowls, but it does not have enough steel to turn correctly or safely extended past the tool rest very far into a deep bowl that's more than 1 or 2 inches deep. So instead, I'm using this Stuart Batty gouge that's his 15V new one, and the majority of the tool is solid bar stock and has a replaceable tip. And as you saw, I walked away and sharpened because I'm doing finishing cuts. So whenever you can, you should sharpen more often than you think you should. And you will save yourself a lot of sanding, a lot of pain by just sharpening your tools. It doesn't take that long. I platform sharpen. It takes me a matter of a minute, 2 minutes at the most to get a keen edge on that tool and get back to work. And so I wanted that rim to be cleaned up and ready to go. Nice clean cuts, minimal scraping, minimal sanding. And again, right here in the hollowing process, I find it on these deep bowls that are like 6 inches deep. These are large bowls, to leave a bunch of grooves and hollow the bowl in 2 or 3 sections of depth. This leaves material in the center and mass for vibration dampening when you're working out towards the rim, and it gives you less time where you have to really be extended out deep over the tool rest. But see, here's a good shot of how long the Stuart Batty 15V tool is of solid bar stock as opposed to flute. So it's really a stable tool for reaching extended depths past the tool rest. And it's got a long 20-inch handle on it, and it's really good for this type of work. You know, another option is to get a bowl tool rest that goes inside and puts your leverage point deeper inside the bowl. Stu has some really good calculations of how long your tool and handle needs to be, dependent upon how much of the tool is extended past the tool rest and the leverage forces at play working on it. So like I said, check out his website. It's a wealth of information. It's all free, and it's, you know, documented from a lifetime of being a career and professional woodturner, and he gives it all to us free, and it's out there. You just have to look it up. So with that bead at the rim, it's kind of deceiving how thin this bowl is. This bowl is getting pretty thin, and I'm apprehensive about it. That's why you'll see me go back and forth from the side walls to the center, because I want to establish the depth of the bowl. I'm not worried about going too deep at the very center of the bowl, because I'm planning on keeping a tenon. That tenon is 5 and I believe about 1/4 inches diameter, because it's a large Vicmark jaws, shark jaws chuck, and it's over 5 inches diameter. But I'm worried about going too thin at the shoulder down at the bottom, and going too deep down there where the wood isn't reinforced by the tenon at the bottom. All right, and if you've watched my channel at all, you know I hate measuring and using unnecessary tools, so I use my finger calipers for just about everything. I feel the surface, I feel for ridges, and I feel for wall thickness, and then I adjust accordingly. I felt a hard shoulder right there, and so now I soften that up with a chamfer, and then, you know, the surface wasn't where I wanted it, so I take another final thin finishing cut down through there. As you can tell by the ribbons, it's a nice thin finishing cut. I'm not taking a lot of material, and I'm just working the bowl, man. This is my favorite part of turning, hollowing the bowl. It never grows old. I'm always amazed at the process of it. I'm just fixated with it. I love it. It's an amazing thing to watch. It never gets old. Coming back and editing my videos, it never gets old, because I'm like, wow, man, look at what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I never wanted to be a woodturner. It never crossed my mind. I stumbled upon it by accident, and I'm so glad I did. I love this. This is my passion. This is what I spend every waking hour thinking about, that I'm not at work or doing something, I'm not actually doing it. This is what I love. So here again, you know, I switched to a bowl tool rest because I'm getting in there deep. It is a deep bowl, and if you have the tool at your disposal, you might as well use it. If it's going to make it easier and save you time, use it. And this is my homemade negative rake scraper I made out of Amazon steel, and it's my idea of a French curve. I've never actually had a real French curve, but it's what I think one would be, and this one fits large bowls like this. It doesn't fit into small, tight bowls. And I use the paper dowel to reduce the friction on my fingers. I'm holding the edge of the rim because it's flexing at that thin, and if you allow it to flex, it will put chatter marks into the bowl that are miserable to get out. It will take a ton of sanding to get them out if you let them develop. And I'm back to the bowl gouge because I wanted to clean up that rim while I still had a little bit of material left. And hopefully I won't have to go back to that rim, and I can just move forward. But I wanted to clean it up a little bit. You know, I'm not a production turner. It's not a race for me. So if it takes me a little bit longer to go through different steps, you know, I don't care. I'm not ashamed of it. I know there are turners that could probably have knocked this bowl out in 20, 30 minutes. And, you know, that's great on them. More power to them. But I go at the level that I'm comfortable with and the speed that I'm comfortable with. And, I don't mind sharing with you guys my journey. This is not really a how-to channel, but at the same time, I will offer my advice and my opinions on what I have learned and what I'm thinking at the time. Now, I've got a nice solid wall down there. I grab the bottom feeder. So that way, I'm running the bottom feeder through the end grain. And it's also, you know, just the angle of the 40-40 doesn't let you finish the bottom of the bowl like a 60-degree Ellsworth grind would, but it's much sharper angle. I'm telling you, it cuts through the wood better. It's personal preference. Y'all do what you guys like to do, and if that 55-degree swept back is your bowl gouge of choice, more power to you. You know, I've used it and I do enjoy it. It works good. But I have settled on a 40-ish, not exactly 40-40 grind. Sometimes I have 1 or 2 gouges that are 40-40 grind, or I have gouges that are 40 degrees swept back wings that give me a little more flexibility. And that's what I've settled on, and that's probably what I'm going to keep, so that I just have repeatable outcomes. It took me 2 years almost to settle on a specific style, and I think that's where I'm at now. So this is probably a good bowl to showcase that I've been turning for 2 years now. I started turning Father's Day weekend in June of 2023, and now it's June of 2025 when this bowl was turned. So I've come quite a long ways in 2 years, but I've got a ton more to learn. I really do. I really want to start turning with some other people and getting more influence. So the CA stained the outside of the cracks, but I'm going ahead and putting the shellac in there so the bowl looks the same in and out. It's not really helping to stop the CA from spreading, but it will have a more uniform finish as the outcome of the bowl. And I'm by no means knocking the product or the technique. It does work. It does save bowls, and I'm leaving it in here so you all can see how easy it is. And also, if you guys have other critiques or techniques on this, let me know. Let me know down in the comments. I love hearing from you guys and getting feedback from you guys. I'm not some cocky guy that knows everything. I am always welcome to constructive criticism and feedback from my viewers on how I could improve myself. I want to hear it. So I have played with turning the CA away, and it seems to get tear out. It seems to, the tool might tear it out of the gap or the crack. So I've settled in on sanding. Again, if you guys have thoughts and variations of it, let me know. But I just sand under power, get rid of it, and then try to feather those flat spots back into the rest of the bowl, and then sand under lathe power again to try and blend everything in. Now, I'm intending this to be a good utility bowl. The sanding sealer was shellac, so that's food safe. And what I'm adding in now also is some tung oil that was cut 50-50 with citrus solvent. So that will let it penetrate in fast. I won't have to wait around for anything. I'm just getting tung oil, hopefully, into the bowl. I'm not 100% sure that it will be able to penetrate in past the shellac, but I'm doing it anyways in case it does. And I'm doing it under power so I can burnish it in and get the heat to start, kind of kickstart the curing and the polymerization process. And I'm doing that before I add Axe's paste wax, or not paste wax, abrasive paste. Come on, man. Axe wood paste, abrasive paste, to give a nice clean finish. I love using Axe's product, the abrasive paste, over both myelin cellulose sealer and over shellac. I think it comes out with a really good finish, and it's stunning looking. And a lot of times I won't do anything further. I might just put a coat of oil on, hoping that it will penetrate. And, a further coat of tung oil, a further coat of walnut oil, and I do have some tried and true Danish oil, which is just 100% linseed oil. There's no other additives to it. So this is a perfect salad bowl size. It's good, large salad bowl. I want it to be as food safe as possible. And like I've said, I've had really good luck with utility bowls being finished with shellac and axe wood paste, abrasive paste over it. It doesn't get much more beautiful than that. That's a natural, warm luster look to a functional piece of art, really. All right, friends, thanks for hanging out with me, and do the things, man, the social media things. Give me the like, give me the subscribe, leave some comments, and share it out the social media. Get the content out there to everybody who wants to see my stuff. Thanks for all your continued support and feedback. Man, ain't cherry some beautiful wood. Ah, man, it's so beautiful. I love cherry. And as I've done now on my most recent videos, I like to put a little still gallery of the bowl finished. Sometimes video doesn't translate well to how well it looks. So I'm trying to get as many different views of the piece out there as possible. Thanks, friends. Y'all have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next one.